sometimes the subject reparations comes up, and it's never going to happen. Reparations for brown folks in this country is never going to happen, and one reason it's not going to happen is because the biases and the unconscious bias and the reason why people do and ingrain in our politics is too deep. There's things in politics that people do whistle calls, and they may not even realize it. Whistle calls, and they call it socialism. Everything that they have, socialism, they think people of color, some people, or at least they try to present people of color as lazy, they don't want to work, this kind of thing. So the reparations, this among brown people, is not going to happen. But I do propose that we should do overall reparations for the whole country. The whole country should do a reparations that we all benefit from, and we just kind of like start from scratch. For example, healthcare. The government should provide everybody healthcare in this country. The reason that many people don't have healthcare in this country is because they can't afford it. Like, if you have a choice between healthcare and not healthcare, you would choose healthcare if you're in a situation you don't want to go to the doctor and not have. The vast majority of people want healthcare anyway. But you don't have healthcare because you can't afford it, or your job doesn't provide it. You don't have access to it. You're in a vulnerable state if you don't have healthcare. You're sick, you got to go somewhere, and yet you don't have healthcare. That bill comes onto you. You don't have money as it is, and then you go to the medical facility and they bill you. You can't even afford that. So now you got full bankruptcy and stuff. We all should have healthcare, reparations, and healthcare. We all should have reparations and wages. The minimum wage or wages should be increased so people can at least make a living. What's the point of working at a job and you can't make a living for your family? We need wages for everyone. And the particular area that suffers is the service industry, hospitality industry, where the vast majority of people that are in poverty are in those areas, and we need wages so that they can make a living. The more wages that someone makes, the more that they put into the economy. So we need reparations where we have fair wages for everyone. We need reparations where we have unions representing us in our jobs. And especially in these jobs where companies want to have lower wages. A lot of times in these lower wages companies, the executives and the managers make many more times the wages than their employees. And that means people are suffering. We need reparations in that area. We need reparations in education. Education's gotten out of control as far as costs. You even hear people like Elon Musk say things like, you don't need to go to school. You can get an education another way. It's like back in the day, a long time ago, education used to be free. Now it's so expensive on us. We need reparations with education at the local level so that people who want to get educated, they don't have to struggle. They can get educated, get a trade, whatever they want to do, so that they can move in whatever direction they want in their careers, and that they can make a living, some sort of living for their family. We just need something in place for all of us citizens so that our daily lives can be livable. We shouldn't be in a situation where people are suffering, where people are starving. We need reparations with food. food banks. People who are starving don't have food. They should have some sort of access, some sort of way, so that they can have food. We need reparations in those areas, that we all get some sort of help. The challenge is that there's such bias and stereotypes in the system that people don't want to move in that direction, because they think, and they stereotype and they lie to themselves, and they think people of color are lazy, people of color are undeserving, people of color are trying to do something to the system. But what they don't realize in their bias and their ignorance is that whatever people of color get, they get. Whatever you deny people of color, you deny yourself. Because there's more people of non-color that don't have health care than people of color. Higher percentage of people of color's population doesn't have health care. But overall, there's more people of non-color who don't have health care. As far as lower wages, more people of color have the lower wages as far as percentage of their population, but overall more people of non-color are living in poverty and don't have the wages. And it just goes on and on and on. So the point is, whatever we do or whatever we think we're doing for people of color, we're doing it against ourselves. We're doing it against our whole country. You're doing it against yourself, because you're just denying yourself. There's states like Texas, I think, where they have the most people in the country who are uninsured. And the thing about this uninsured, even high income people, for some reason, aren't able to get access to insurance in this state. And it's a tragedy, because people are suffering. People are scared. It's a tragedy. And I asked why. And I heard a rumor that one of the governors has made a comment that he doesn't want freeloaders taking advantage of the system or whatever it is. Interesting comment, because it's a big misconception. It's not about freeloaders. It's about, can we afford it? Like I mentioned before, the wages are low. If you're not making high enough wages and you can't support your family, then how are you going to get health care? You're not. And that's the point. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Low wages, we're not paying high enough wages, and because we're not paying high enough wages, people can't get health care. So government has to take care of it with this overall reparations for everybody. Government has to take care of health care. It's ridiculous that people are arguing over health care or not. We don't need to listen to those arguments. Government needs to step in and help people with health care. People wanted to call it sociology. Not sociology. Can't remember what the term is. But before the 60s, before brown people integrated in society, people of non-color were more than open to accept government help in every area of their life. From the mortgages, that's where the vast mortgages have improved or increased. It went from 40% in the 60s or in the 50s, I think it was the 50s, to 60% for people of non-color. People of color didn't even have access to that. I think 2% of the population had access to it. We were just denied in certain areas. Education was free. So much more people of non-color were getting educated before the 60s so that they can have a different type of job. People of color didn't have access to those things. It created a very strong middle class for people of non-color, a very strong middle class with this government help. But now here we are into integration, and people of color and people of non-color are living together, working together. Now people don't want to participate in these programs because people of color will participate. People cut and they stereotype us as lazy or don't want to work, and it's not the case. It's that we're trying to get a head start too. We're trying to get our foot into this life too, so that we can do well. It's amazing that even people of color even have made it this far with the help that we have not received. It fascinates me, the strength of this culture and how they've gone this far without the help that people of non-color have. But then it disgusts me at the same time when you see hypocritical people talking about labeling people of color lazy when they in fact are going for and have been in the same position as they was many years ago during the Great Depression, in fact. And they were struggling and they just need a hand up from the government. So, that's basically all I got. Reparations in all these areas. Education, food, we all should have food, healthcare, wages, and bringing in unions to protect us. We all, blacks, whites, everybody in this country should have access to that. And we should not allow other people, other leaders to tell us otherwise because they have an agenda. The last thing I'll say is that people are saying we don't need health care. You know what's fascinating? They have health care. People that say we don't need wages, what's fascinating is they're multimillionaires. They have more than enough money for themselves. Nothing against that, but they have more than enough money for themselves. People are saying we don't need education, we need to start paying for our education. Well, the government paid for their education years ago. They're educated, highly educated. Government paid for their education years ago. But they're telling us, citizens, that we don't need these things. And they want to call it socialism. I think that's the term they use. Socialism. It wasn't socialism in the 30s when we were at 20% unemployment rate, or maybe it was higher than that. And people relied on government for food. They relied on government to start building structures, parks, libraries, whatever it is that they start building. They started putting the education system in place where people can go to college for free. It wasn't socialism then. But now that we're all integrated, now we want to put this term socialism in it. It's a whistle call. So that's what we should be fighting for. Reparations for everyone, not for one group. It will never work. Reparations for all of us. That's all I got.